On Deadly Ground is the Steven Seagal mega blockbuster hit movie where he showed the world. Wait, I'm getting a call from our producer. Wait, what do you mean we can't copy Space Ice? Hold on just a sec. So, as the intro explicitly tells you, today we're covering the sole movie that Steven Seagal ever directed, On Deadly Ground. Released in 1994, this movie was met with several negative reviews and was nominated for several Razzie Awards, winning the Worst Director for Seagal. This movie is also considered a turning point for Seagal, both in terms of his relationship with Warner Brothers, along with his reputation and career in general. However, we'll elaborate more on that when we reach the conclusion. Steven Seagal is very infamous for many things, and for good reason. This man makes some of the worst movies that you'll ever see. And there's no other channel that covers his movies better than Space Ice. Seriously, check this guy out, because he's awesome and is the main source of inspiration for covering Seagal movies. Since in our recent post you voted that we should make more reviews, so I've decided to accommodate those requests. I plan to make more of these, so if you want more, I suggest you watch and share this video. Maybe you can even make suggestions for what I should cover next. I want to do something I thought that I could have some fun with, and who better than one of the biggest locales of acting on the internet. I won't recount this man's entire history, that would take at least a 45-minute video at the minimum if I did that. I will talk about some of his antics in a way that I hope will be entertaining. I chose this movie because it's unique in the sense that it's the sole movie that Seagal ever directed, and the first movie of his that I saw, so I believe this will be a good starting point to begin with, and I hope this will be the start of a long saga covering Seagal movies, or just movies in general. Without further ado, let's blow up some oil rigs straight into this. To start the movie off, we see that a small oil refinery whatever is on fire, and who other than Steven Seagal shows up to save the day. I know that he has a name in this movie, Forrest Taft. Let's be honest, he's just Steven Seagal and everything but name, just like in all of his other movies. So we'll just refer to him as Seagal for this video and any others that we might cover. Seagal changes clothes about 5 seconds, and we're introduced to his acting in this movie.
Hey, Hugh, what's cooking? Come on now, Hugh. How'd he make you do anything? I just can't figure out why somebody'd do that to his own rig. It doesn't make sense.
So as you can tell, this guy can't deliver a convincing line to save his life, though this is a pretty commonly accepted fact at this point, that he's not a very good actor in the slightest. But for those that are new to Seagal, you should learn to get used to it. There are also some awful lines that are very clearly meant to sound cool, but come across as just really stupid.
$350,000? I'd anything once.
We're going to have some fun whenever I do a Seagal review. Whenever a frequent trope for his movies appears, we'll check off that trope from the list to see how many appear in one film each. So right now we're checking off terrible lines that are meant to sound cool. And since I mentioned that his line reads are already pretty bad, mainly due to his weird accent he has going on, I'm marking that too. Back to the film, Seagal goes into the fire with no respirator, even though that's what firefighters do whenever they go into these types of situations. But whatever. Realizing there's no other option, Seagal blows the place up with this cool guy don't look at explosion shot, even though it's really near him and he could have easily died. We see his client who hired him for a job is Michael Jennings, played by legendary Michael Caine. And let me just say this right now, he carries this movie. Though it's pretty weird seeing him obviously dye his hair between scenes, but that's honestly a nitpick more than anything else. What isn't a nitpick is the next scene where he gets this altercation into a bar, where this Indian guy is being bullied by these racist pricks, and at first it seems as though Seagal's going to stop it, but the movie does this pointless fake out where he just sits somewhere else. Then the guy gets beaten up some more, Seagal finally steps in, despite being told by the bar owner not to break anything.
Forrest, don't break anything.
Seagal proceeds to break almost everything in the bar, including a jukebox that couldn't have been cheap. And Seagal in this scene is just unstoppable. Never once does he get hit or take any kind of damage himself. This is the first fight scene in the movie, and you can already tell that the movie is a vanity project where Seagal is playing this self-aggrandizing protagonist, which the movie glorifies constantly, which checks off the invincible hero trope, though at least he's doing his own stunts, standing up and moving while fighting, unlike some of his other movies. But the cherry on top of this scene is what happens next at the end. Seagal plays this slap piece game with this guy, and the condition is that every time he slaps his hands, he gets to punch him, and he succeeds at it every single time. But that's not the funny part. The funny part is the speech that he gives is priceless.
What does it take? What does it take to change the essence of a man?
I need time to change. Now comes the part where we throw our heads back and laugh. Ready?
Ready!
I am tempted to check off the pretentiousness mark, but there's a much better time for that, so we'll get there when we get there. Cut back to the bad guys. They're preparing the commercial to help with PR, with Michael Caine being friendly to these elk, and this is the moment where his performance really starts to carry the movie.
You have any great ideas, just keep them to yourself, okay? And leave this shit to me.
We learn the stakes for a movie where they need to activate Aegis 1 oil within 13 days, or otherwise the rights to the oil reverts to the Eskimos. And turns out they've been using faulty preventers to rush the plant to become operational, which is why the fire started in the first one that we saw. But Hugh, the old guy Segal has been talking to in earlier scenes, is onto them about this. So Caine sends McGruder, played by Billy Bob Thornton, to handle the problem. Segal heads to the badly green screen rig, which checks off the bad VFX category, and somehow, despite being a contract worker, Segal has the authorization to access their servers without any other means of protection. Even though the servers are being monitored, but nothing else. What really good security, am I right? He learns that the functional preventers aren't due to arrive for another 90 days, which paints him as another target for the bad guys. Hugh's going through a bunch of files, which he puts on a floppy disk and hides them away from McGruder. Things get ugly and they torture him for where he's hiding the info, but he refuses to corroborate, so they kill him with a drill and ransack his house. I hope Hugh hid it in a convincing place where they can't find it. Otherwise, that would be really stupid, wouldn't it? There's a scene at a conference where the Inuit people voice their discontent with Caine and his company poisoning their people, and one of them splashes oil onto his suit. Segal confronts Caine about his actions, asking him how much money is enough, implying he's onto him, which is dumb because he's not exactly being subtle about it. Plus, it's rich hearing how much money is enough when he said this earlier.
$350,000? I anything once!
Caine hires Segal for another job after an accident in a substation on the North Slope. They fly him there, and now he decides to wear a respirator. He realizes that Hugh is dead and that this is a trap, and then this happens.
What the fuck?
So, you might think Segal is dead, right? Or at least in critical condition? Nope! He's alive and he barely has any injuries. The plot armor is strong with this one, folks. So no, I'm not on checking the invincible hero mark, because this here is grade A stupidity. He gets rescued by the Inuits, who bring him into their village. Caine frames Segal and Hugh, claiming they're the ones responsible for the accidents and that they're now dead. Segal is nurtured back to health. He meets the village elder and his daughter Masu. The elder thinks of Segal as some kind of bear. Don't worry, we're getting to that. The bad guys are looking for Segal's remains in their helicopter. Segal tries to leave the village, but is stopped by the wolves that they use for their sleds. He claimed he must go before the bad guys find him in the village and endanger them all, but instead, they take him on their spiritual journey to the mountains. And to give some compliments to the movie, the soundtrack is pretty decent. While I wouldn't say I would go out of my way to hear it, it's not bad to listen to when watching this piece of garbage. So they begin his journey by touching his forehead with a feather, which causes him to pass out, which is hilarious the way I think the movie was intending. Skull tackles and stabs a bear and gets knocked into the water. He chooses between this old lady and this scantily clad woman, and you know, if this wasn't meant to glorify Segal, he would choose the younger one. The old one spews out this platitude about what man has done to Earth and the environment you've heard about a million times in a million different things. Segal puts his hand in a pool, which is now covered in oil. Really subtle symbolism here. Segal emerges from the water, apparently having gone through this spiritual journey. And this part is just so stupid. It is very clearly intended to paint Segal as this awesome hero, which is the main reason why the Elder calls him the Bear. That's literally the only reason this exists in the movie. Mark off the scene explaining how awesome he is. The bad guys find the village. Segal isn't there for whatever reason, and they demand to know where he's at. Masu claims the jacket is hers, and he smacks her down, which causes her father to wave his arms out. But for whatever reason, McGruder shoots him fatally. And don't say it was because he thought he was being attacked, because the guy was way too far away to hurt him. He had no weapons on him either, so he pretty much just shoots him for no reason. Segal returns from doing whatever, says goodbye to the Elder with this long pause for some reason.
Tell him. Thank you. Goodbye.
Segal and Masu take this snowmobile that the village has for emergencies. They ride off to Hugh's house, and this is where we reach the point where the movie completely breaks itself. Segal heads upstairs, grabs his bag from Hugh's closet, and what's in it? The freaking drives! Yes, the bad guys are so stupid in this movie, they forgot entirely about looking in the most dead obvious places in the world to look for something in someone's house. If this didn't happen, the rest of the movie would be playing out very differently because there'd be no way for Segal to know any of the information from it, which is why he goes on this murder and destruction quest in the climax of the movie. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. The bad guys find themselves there, and we get into this gunfight. So, how is it?
It's wrong!
Segal shoots one guy, and another one sprays and prays his gun like it's an SMG for some reason, even though it's a handgun. Segal just blind fires when he doesn't really need to. When one goon's out of ammo, instead of, reloading it, he stupidly throws his weapon at Segal. They all engage in close quarters and get instantly demolished. What an embarrassment. Scratch off improper gun handling as well. Finally, getting back to something positive, Michael Caine continues to carry the movie some more.
Try this. Delve down into the deepest bowels of your soul. Try to imagine the ultimate nightmare, and that won't come close to this son of a bitch.
Sure, this scene continues the Segal's awesome trope, but Caine alone salvages it. To take care of Segal, to hire some mercenaries led by none other than Arlie Ermey. Yep, the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket and the sergeant from the Toy Story movies.
Here you are all equally worthless.
So now we have someone else to carry this movie. Awesome! Segal and Masu meet up with this other guy who's Segal's friend. They look at the files to learn that Aegis oil won't function properly when activated, citing it to be a ticking time bomb. So now that he has evidence that Aegis and Michael Caine are up to no good, does he turn the evidence into the press or the cops like what Masu suggests? Nope! He instead goes on this tangent on how the hocus pocus spirit stuff won't work, how he loves the spirit world and her father. That's not going to fix the situation, but instead the cold, hard reality of this world. He doesn't want to resort to violence, but claims he has no choice. But there are just so many things wrong here. First, he completely walks back on his arc from his spiritual journey, if you can even call it that. He barely even knew her father, especially since he couldn't even communicate with them directly. As I said, he has the evidence that Caine is up to no good, but by revealing himself publicly, he'll show that Caine lied about him being dead, and with the evidence he has at his disposal, it should be an open and shut case. But instead, he decides, screw it! I'm just going to blow everything up. And we're certainly going to talk about the implications of that when it gets time. Segal grabs some guns and ammo from an armory in the house. He and Masu grab some horses and head to the woods in another armory. While on their way there, the bad guys discuss how they couldn't find any background information to Segal, and claimed that he must be from the CIA with a mysterious past. Another trope Segal loves to do is constantly imply that he's ex-Special Forces / CIA just to make himself seem like this mysterious badass. So, of course, we're marking this off too. Segal and Masu arrive at the stash and grab a bunch of explosives. He lures some mercenaries to their location, and when it's conveniently close enough, he blows up the helicopter. This leads to the chase in the woods where he lays traps, and luckily for them, guys go for the one path that causes some of them to die, although they can come from any number of directions. The heroes jump this gap. Segal lays an explosive which blows it up, preventing the mercs from reaching them. This is it, guys. The moment of truth. Now it's time to dissect this movie's disastrous final act. The rest of the film has been pretty bad, but this climax is the perfect storm of idiocy. So let's do this! The pair sneaks in. Segal notices a guard, and he grabs a 2-liter soda bottle and uses it as a silencer. I'm not sure why his two armories didn't have any, and this jury-rigged one doesn't seem that it will work, but alright. Segal starts messing up with electrical equipment, and the FBI shows up to protect the place, which amounts to nothing. Segal encounters more security, and we get this more lousy editing where he spins and throws the guy to the wall, only for the same guy to teleport back to his original position, just be taken down again. This movie cost $50 million, folks, just remember that. There are explosions, the power starts to go down, and Arlie Ermey continues to be awesome.
My guy in DC tells me that we are not dealing with the student here, we're dealing with the professor. He's the kind of guy that would drink a gallon of gasoline so he could piss in your campfire. You could drop this guy off at the Arctic Circle wearing a pair of bikini underwear without his toothbrush, and tomorrow afternoon he's gonna show up at your poolside, so let's go find him and kill him and get rid of the son of a bitch.
Segal continues murdering people, and Magruder and Cain's lawyer lady evacuate. And what happens next is mind-blowing. Magruder runs to the copter, Segal shoots out the rear turbine, remember that. He kills Magruder, and he dies by shredding him by the blades. Even though we just saw them destroyed, they're just now perfectly intact again. The lady doesn't know where she's driving, resulting in her crashing into a fuel tank and blowing up. Now I see that the bad guys are as competent as ever. More explosions happen and people are dying. Segal and Masu take the elevator, place a claymore, and the bad guys shoot at the elevator. But it turns out that the heroes aren't inside, and the bad guys shoot the explosive and die. This allows the good guys access to the control room, which enables them to deliver the killing blow to the station. Unfortunately, the movie decides it's time for Ermi to die now, so to save his distance, he walks towards Segal, allowing him to grab his shotgun, and now the time for Ermi to be awesome has ended. Kane attempts to continue to activate the rig while the workers are evacuating. And just to remind you, Segal hasn't experienced any hardships during this entire process. He takes on some guys in a close quarters battle. They finally meet Kane. He tries to walk off, but they lasso him. In an underwhelming death scene, he shoots the cord and he falls to his death into a pit of oil. Masu claims it's for her father, even though Kane had nothing to do with his death, so she should have said that to Magruder. The charges go off and they're forced to run. In this hallway, this pipe falls, but it's utterly incongruent with how the rest of them are laid out, so it just looks dumb and out of place. They take off their car and survive. So Segal just killed Lord knows how many people now, including innocent blue-collar workers who are just trying to make an honest living. I get that he told them to evacuate, but there's no way everybody made it. So his line about a man with no conscience seems pretty hypocritical now, doesn't it? So we're checking him off for that, or at the very least putting innocent people in harm's way. Now, we get the most infamous scene from this whole movie. He goes on this 4-minute lecture about how greedy businesses are destroying the planet and its environment. Now it's our job to keep them in check, and now we need to use more environmental friendly alternatives, such as electric cars, even though he owns at least 5 non-electric ones in real life, but that's besides the point. We just witnessed him destroy an oil rig that could wreak havoc on the environment. I know there's this throwaway line about how they try to make the preventers implode on themselves or something like that to prevent the oil from leaking, but they didn't get around to doing that since they had to deal with Kane and Ermi. Plus, I'm pretty sure that's not how that works, since this is a Segal movie. If the Segal movie claims one thing, assume it works completely opposite in real life. He should be in jail now for what he's done, but he gets away scot-free, and the movie glorifies him for his actions. This scene is so hypocritical and ham-fisted that at any point it could have had is entirely lost. Nothing about this works. The fact that this was supposed to be 40 minutes is truly astounding. So now we're most certainly checking off pretentiousness, which the movie has been already, but it absolutely deserves it in this one scene in particular. We get this post-credit scene of him and Masu together, scratching him off getting with a younger woman. However, at least at this point, she isn't half to a third his age at least. And the raven that flies by is implied to be her father reincarnated, which is dumb like the rest of this movie. And now, the film is over. Wow, this was a really bad movie. Considering that isn't even considered to be one of the worst Segal movies, speaks to how terrible his filmography is. And this is the turning point of his career. This movie wasn't a massive hit in either the critical or financial landscapes. This, among his other flops afterwards, caused a falling out between Segal and Warner Brothers, which is why most of his movies after Exit Wounds, besides Machete in 2010, weren't theatrically released. So I think the rest of his review speaks for itself. I'm going to link my Letterboxd in the description if you want to know my opinion on every movie that I've watched, and I suggest you subscribe to the channel. I'm considering making more shorter reviews like this one since you guys have requested that. Also, please check out Space Eyes because his reviews are awesome and the reason I got this Segal opinion bashing here on YouTube. That's all for now. This is Skids, signing off.